Throughout its time as an accepted genre of music, hip-hop has been the soundtrack to lives of Black youth for a few generations. It has now become one of the biggest influences for Black males and females in forms of entertainment, art, politics, sports, fashion, as well as our aspirations. In fact, hip-hop has constructed a popular identity of Black males and females alike. As a fairly young genre of music as compared to others, many of its fans feel like hip-hop has been dying over the past 10 years. Those who agree feel that the music represented certain qualities that made hip-hop organic, such as soul, love, lyricism, consciousness, and politics. All things that are missing in today's music. We tracked down University of Maryland Professor McCune, who specializes in African American studies. Our goal was to gain his perspective of his images of Black men and women within hip-hop culture.
The question of whether or not hip-hop influences Black masculinity is a very interesting question. One that I might frame as how has Black masculinity, in fact, informed hip-hop over time? Because one of the things that I think that people misunderstand is that there is a culture of masculinity that existed prior to hip-hop music and culture.
We also caught up with some local radio personalities to get a deeper understanding on how the music has affected the industry and its audience.
My name is Rane. I work at WPGC, CBS Radio, it's 95.5 on your FM dial. I've been working here for 11 years.
Flexx, WPGC 95.5, one half of the home team. Been doing this night show now for about 11 years. Been working in radio since 1994, so it's been a minute.
What they represent. Nas, to me, I think represented things that young men were going through, what a typical rapper represents back in the 90s. You know, he was one of the first to do it and be successful at it. The Nas, Mobb Deep, Jay-Z era back in the 90s. Soulja Boy, he represents how much money you can make doing it. Before, these cats, there was never a sense of, wow, he's really paid when you were listening to an artist, because they were always talking about struggle. They were always talking about what they didn't have growing up. And now they're always talking about what they got, whether or not they have it. So I never really heard Nas talk about money in the 90s when he was first coming out. A lot of people really didn't talk about what they had because there was always that, I think, awareness that the people that I'm marketing to don't have this. So why am I going to say it? Whereas now it's like, ha, 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 if you ain't got this, then, you know, nobody should mess with you. No girl should talk to you because you didn't have it. There wasn't that flaunting persona that exists now in hip-hop.
In the 90s is when hip-hop was the best, in my eyes. It was the purest. It was so creative. And you had everybody doing their own thing. It was real organic. It was just amazing. It was a great time. I was so proud to be a part of the 90s because the music was so magnificent. So sometimes you see them old school concerts, they're right. And some of those artists will work forever because the music was just so, it was that good. And it meant something. It had meaning behind it. It had a movement behind it. It wasn't, you know, like, times are just different right now and music moves on, but it wasn't a lot of gimmicks.
Hip-hop actually is largely informed by Black masculinity and Black masculine culture, and in particular ways of thinking about what it means to be a Black man in America. For example, in the 80s and the 90s, right, there was a historical shift in our country, particularly thinking about the war on drugs and the kind of influx of drugs within Black communities that were informing the consciousness of Black men. Black men then wanted to talk about what does it mean, right, to fight against drugs? What does it mean to have drugs in your community? Or what does it mean to have to figure out a way to make do economically, right?
When you talk about mainstream female artists and what they represent now as opposed to yesterday, when you're talking about female hip-hop artists, you're not talking about a whole lot of people, you know? So, I mean, the ones now, you can count on one hand. And it depends on who you're talking about now, you know? What do they represent now as opposed to, I mean, there's always been a sense of sexuality with women, sensuality, beauty. You know, that's always been important with women. How they choose to deliver it has been different, but expressing how they feel beautiful is important, and why you should feel beautiful has always been important. They chose to do it different ways. Like, you know, one of my favorite female hip hop MCs, I don't know if she's a now or then, she's kind of in between. Well, I probably then would be Lauryn Hill. You know, it was okay for me to be dark skinned, and it was okay for me to not want to do the same things as other people. I graduated high school in '97, and that was when she was at the peak of her career, and she made it okay for me to not accept some of the things that guys would try to say to me. She made it okay for me to go a whole nother route and still be cool with myself. Is any female hip hop artist offering that lane right now? No. You know?
Right now you don't have that many. Right now, mainstream women in hip hop, you just don't have that many. I vote for the BET. I'm on the Academy for the BET Awards. And so yesterday I'm filling out my ballot for the nominees. And it got to female artists. And now when you pick your nominees, they give you a whole list to choose from, right? And you can pick up to 5, right? When I did the male MCs, it was like 40 names. When I picked the females, remember I could only pick 5. There was only 4 to choose from. And I really only knew like 2 of them. So it was bad. If Nicki Minaj doesn't win that category, it's a problem.
The role of black women within hip-hop is also very important, and I think that one of the things that we undercut when we decide to think about misogyny is the many ways that black women themselves have contributed to hip-hop, right? And so we look over time, you can see these different icons of hip-hop who were black women, the Queen Latifahs, the Little Kims, the Foxy Browns, the now Nicki Minaj's, right, are definitely contributing to the culture of hip-hop in a very interesting way. Talking about the misogyny with hip-hop culture, and that does 2 things for me. It limits who black men are as being narrowly homophobic and misogynist, but at the same time it also limits who black women are within hip-hop culture, as they are also agents. They produce hip-hop culture, right? They are productive citizens within the hip-hop cultural community. All black women in videos are not performing as hoochies or hoes, right? But in fact, they also are agents of their own bodies, right? They're exuding sexuality in the way that they see fit.
Where do I see hip-hop going? I mean, exactly in the same direction. Hip-hop is the new pop music. So I think you're going to see people that you wouldn't think of being hip-hop artists that are going to be hip-hop artists. And everybody's going to be rapping. Everybody's rapping now.
Where do I see hip-hop going? The crazy part is, I don't know. I don't know. It's going to be a ride, and I'm going to ride with it and see where it goes. It's been down south for a long time. I don't know how it can get back north, and if it can, you know, I don't know. I think the organic is gone forever, and I think it's digital now, and it is what it is. I don't know where it's going, but I'll always be a fan.
In its humble beginnings, critics considered hip-hop to be a fad that would soon come to pass. Looking at it 30 years later, the question that now remains is, has this fad worn out its welcome? And if so, where do we go from here? But in the meantime...
Look at me now.